What if the pyramids weren't just tombs or monuments, but altars for forgotten occult rituals? What secrets were whispered in the shadows of their colossal stones? These are not the rituals you read about in textbooks. These are the ones buried deep, hidden from the world, masked by time, and protected by blood. Stay until the end, because the final chapter unveils a chilling link between all ancient pyramid civilizations that will change what you think you know. But before we dive in, let me know if you're enjoying this kind of long, gentle history. Feel free to tap that like button and subscribe, only if you truly love what I'm doing here. And in the comments, share where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your city. I always love seeing our little bedtime crew gathering from every corner of the world. Now lower your lights, maybe let a soft fan hum in the background, and settle in. Let's ease into tonight's quiet journey together. Chapter 1: The Blood Conduits of Saqqara. Long before the towering pyramids of Giza rose into Egypt's skyline, another monument had already pierced the desert's breathless silence. The step pyramid of Saqqara, built for the pharaoh Djoser over 4,700 years ago, is often called the first pyramid. But few realize that beneath its well-documented surface lies a hidden labyrinth, older and darker than history admits. These passages aren't just burial chambers. They form a network of carved stone veins, winding deep into the earth like arteries. Some were sealed off entirely, while others had chambers where walls were stained with strange, reddish residue. Archaeologists explained it away as pigment or oxidized minerals. But in the 1990s, a team of independent researchers found traces of hematite and organic matter, signs that something far more unsettling had soaked the stones. Whatever had taken place down there wasn't ceremonial burial. It was something alive, something flowing, something demanding a price for power. The descent into these hidden levels isn't just literal. It's symbolic. The priests who once walked those corridors believed they were entering the womb of the world. Saqqara wasn't only a tomb, it was a vessel for transformation. According to ancient carvings on deeper levels, most of which are inaccessible to tourists, strange humanoid figures are shown seated before channels or troughs. Above them hover symbols that resemble inverted ankhs, associated not with life, but with the taking of it. Next to these are tall, rectangular altars, far too high for preparation of the dead. They look more like draining tables. Blood, it seems, was not only shed here. It was collected, not for death rites, but for life amplification. The priests of Saqqara were not mourning the dead. They were feeding something ancient, something unseen, through the pyramid's core. What were they feeding? Not gods in the way we imagine them, not statues or idols. They spoke of the Netjeru, forces that moved like wind and fire, invisible but all-seeing. These forces, they believed, could be summoned and made to dwell temporarily in chambers specially prepared for them. The step pyramid was not just a monument. It was a living machine designed to attract, contain, and channel divine presence. But that presence required more than prayer. It demanded essence. The priests, trained in both engineering and sorcery, carved slanted floors that led downward into stone basins. These basins, now dry and cracked, once overflowed with the essence of ritual offerings, blood from animals and possibly from humans. Some fragments of bone found in sealed niches don't match the species native to the region. They are smaller, younger, possibly children. One chamber in particular has been the subject of hushed debate among scholars. It's called the Bent Hall, named after its crooked design, a deviation from the perfect symmetry found elsewhere. Inside, the walls are covered in darkened, soot-like stains. At its center stands a triangular altar carved from black basalt. When struck, it produces a deep humming tone, almost musical. But more disturbing are the grooved channels that run from its base into the floor. When the altar was first uncovered, excavators assumed it was used for ceremonial oils, but residue samples revealed traces of iron-rich fluid mixed with opiates and crushed blue lotus, a sedative and a stimulant combined, used not for the dying, but perhaps for those about to undergo transformation. This was no place for rest. It was a site of intense physical change, ritual immersion, and sacrifice. At the far end of the underground network lies a forgotten corridor sealed off by limestone blocks. It was opened briefly during a survey in the 1950s, but sealed again due to instability. However, notes from one of the explorers describe what lay beyond. A narrow hall lined with torch grooves and a final chamber filled with odd recesses, like sockets without statues. On the floor, circular stains with splash patterns suggested movement, violent movement. If this was a place of ritual, it wasn't clean or symbolic. It was brutal. Sacrificial victims may have been brought here not just to die, but to feed the very architecture itself. The pyramid's materials, limestone, granite, alabaster, were believed to hold and channel spiritual power. The priests were building a spiritual battery, and blood was its charge. The design of the Saqqara complex reinforces this theory. Unlike Giza, which points outward toward the stars, Saqqara curls inward. Its walls, walkways, and columns create a spiraling inward motion, drawing energy toward the central shaft beneath the pyramid. This shaft descends nearly 90 feet and leads into a chamber with peculiar notches carved into the walls. Some believe these were slots for wooden beams. Others say they were meant to hold ritual tools or objects of power. But among the debris, a strange discovery was made. A flat slate inscribed with 6 symbols arranged in a circle. No clear translation exists, but the orientation of the symbols aligns with 6 other chambers scattered throughout the underground. Whatever ritual was performed here, it was synchronized. Blood was drawn in multiple places, all flowing toward the center. There's also the mystery of the red stone, found buried just outside the southern edge of the complex. This oddly shaped slab was covered in dried red crust when uncovered. Initial analysis dismissed it as iron deposits, but a deeper study revealed faint carvings on its surface, almost completely eroded. Some researchers believe the stone once stood at the heart of the ritual, possibly brought out during specific alignments of the sun. Saqqara's western wall is pierced with a narrow slit, allowing a single beam of light to enter one chamber for only a few minutes each year. That beam lands directly on an altar with 2 depressions, perfect for holding bowls, or something that needed to be warmed. Blood exposed to sunlight in Egyptian ritual held immense symbolic meaning, combining life with divine light. As strange as all this sounds, it's worth noting that Djoser himself wasn't just a passive figurehead. According to legends passed down through the priesthood, he was involved in the rituals himself, not merely as a recipient of divine favor, but as a conduit. He didn't just fund the pyramid, he used it. A series of statues buried near the complex depict a figure, possibly Djoser, holding a strange object shaped like a loop with two extended arms. No such artifact has ever been found, but it bears a strong resemblance to a conductor's tuning fork, a tool perhaps for resonance. The belief was that sound and blood, when combined at precise moments, could unlock what they called the threshold. Not death, not rebirth, something else, something in between. This threshold is central to the oldest stories about Saqqara. In hidden papyri recovered from the desert around the site, there are references to the Sikkim passage, a gate not of stone but of perception. Those who were trained could open it during the rituals, allowing entities to pass through briefly. But doing so required a living bridge. Someone had to offer their body, and once the ritual began, the process could not be undone. This was the price of summoning. If the connection failed, the bridge died. If it succeeded, they were changed. Some say those who returned from the threshold were no longer fully human. Their eyes moved differently. Their voices never echoed. The priests kept them hidden, and when they died, their remains were buried without names. Modern excavations have uncovered jars sealed with wax and containing a black tar-like substance, placed near these unnamed graves. Chemical analysis showed a mixture of pitch, herbs, and something else, organic tissue ground into paste. Whether these jars were offerings, protections, or warnings is unclear, but their placement beside the nameless graves suggests a deep fear. Even in death, the priests were trying to contain what had once passed through the threshold. And still, the rituals continued, because whatever was on the other side, it brought something they wanted. Knowledge, power, visions of things yet to come. The step pyramid was their key, a key turned with blood. Today, most of these discoveries are kept out of public view. Tourists see the restored halls, the outer colonnades, and the beautiful stepped silhouette against the desert sky. But they don't see the sealed doors, the unmarked shafts, the stone blocks etched with forbidden sigils. Egyptologists rarely speak of the occult aspects of Saqqara. They call it superstition, myth, or ceremonial overreach. But whispers among independent researchers persist. The pyramid's design, they say, matches something deeper, an understanding of how energy flows through the human body, the earth, and beyond. It was never just a tomb. It was a transformer, a doorway, and its activation required something ancient civilizations never hesitated to give. What we uncovered in Saqqara is only the beginning. One pyramid, one machine, one ritual. But the symbols found in its depths appear in places far beyond Egypt. On obsidian blades in Mesoamerica. On the walls of pyramids buried beneath jungle vines. Even in sound chambers under African sands. The patterns repeat, the rites echo. And as we move forward in this journey, we'll see that Saqqara was not an isolated anomaly. It was one voice in a chorus of civilizations reaching toward the same dark sky, using the same forgotten language of blood. Chapter 2: The Breath of the Builders. Teotihuacan's Ritual Smoke. Far from the sands of Egypt, across the ocean and through the valleys of central Mexico, rises the ancient city of Teotihuacan. Its name means the place where gods were born, but its builders remain a mystery. No one truly knows who constructed its massive pyramids or why they vanished. But among the ruins, secrets linger in the shadows, particularly beneath the Pyramid of the Sun. While the surface dazzles with precision and cosmic alignment, it's what lies underground that tells the darker story. Hidden tunnels stretch below, branching like veins into the earth, lined with mica, obsidian, and carvings unlike anything found above. These were not simple burial sites or storerooms. They were temples of breath and vision, of vapor and altered reality. Here, smoke was not a tool of disguise or worship. It was a gate, and those who entered did not come back unchanged. Deep beneath the pyramid, archaeologists uncovered a tunnel sealed for over 1,000 years. Inside, walls shimmered with flecks of golden pyrite. But more curious were the remnants of braziers. Stone bowls blackened with soot and laced with crystallized plant resin. Mixed among the ashes were crushed fragments of psychoactive flora, morning glory seeds, dried mushrooms, and a plant resembling salvia. Combined and burned, they produced a thick, almost oily smoke. And nearby were masks carved from obsidian, mirrored black surfaces, too polished for utility, but perfect for vision. These masks were believed to reflect not the face, but the spirit within. When worn in ritual, they turned the wearer's identity inside out, transforming them into a vessel. It wasn't just about sight. It was about entering a state where boundaries between self and spirit dissolved. The ritual began in silence. Initiates were led blindfolded through narrow corridors beneath the earth. The only light came from flickering flames reflecting off golden flecks in the walls, creating the illusion of stars underground. The air grew heavy with incense and vapor. As they entered the smoke chamber, their blindfolds were removed. A priest would appear through the mist, faceless behind the obsidian mask. Then the inhalation began, slow, rhythmic breaths of the sacred mixture. Within minutes, the world would change. Sounds echoed oddly. Walls seemed to pulse. But this was only the threshold. Those who were ready would feel a sudden tearing sensation, not of pain, but of separation. Their soul, they believed, detached from the flesh. What happened next was not hallucination. It was crossing over. Initiates described visions of massive serpents coiled around pyramids of light, or falling through endless obsidian tunnels into lakes of stars. Some floated above their own bodies. Others spoke of shadowy beings offering them keys, masks, or animal skins. When the ritual ended, not everyone returned. Some remained catatonic for days. Others emerged forever changed, their voices lower, their eyes distant. In rare cases, the body did not survive, though the death was said to be a sign of unworthiness rather than error. This was not mere spirituality. It was initiation, a filtering process. Only those strong enough to face their own spirit and return whole could rise within the priesthood. The breath was the test, the smoke, the judge. One of the most chilling discoveries beneath the pyramid was a chamber shaped like a four-petaled flower. At its center, a small pool of liquid mercury still shimmered, untouched by time. Mercury was sacred to the Teotihuacanos. It symbolized blood, moonlight, and divine passage. But in ritual, it had another purpose. Reflections in its surface were said to show what lies beyond, the true face of the gods. Priests would lean over the pool, obsidian mask in hand, and breathe in a precise mix of smoke. With each breath, their image in the mercury would blur, shift, and finally disappear. This moment was believed to mark the crossing. The priest was no longer present in the body. The spirit had journeyed into the great mirror, the realm of the unseen, and what they saw there shaped their every command thereafter. Outside, The pyramid of the sun appeared grand, geometric, and serene. But beneath its surface, the rituals were raw and demanding. Some required days of fasting and isolation before the smoke could be inhaled. Others took place only during celestial alignments, especially when Venus, the morning star, rose in the east. In these moments, the tunnels were said to come alive, vibrating with unseen energy. Strange instruments were sometimes found near the chambers, whistles shaped like skulls, drums carved with spirals. These were not for music. They were tools of rhythm, designed to guide breathing, control heartbeat, and synchronize the mind with the pulsing breath of the earth. Breathing was sacred, connected flesh to spirit, sky to stone. Among the murals in Teotihuacan, there are strange depictions of masked figures emerging from clouds of smoke, their bodies wrapped in serpents or flames. These weren't mythic tales. They were records. Each image documented a successful crossing. Those who survived the breath ritual became something more, intermediaries between worlds. They advised leaders, interpreted omens, and could sense danger before it came. But their role came with cost. Many lived apart, in silence. Some refused to speak of what they saw. Others claimed they were always being watched, followed by unseen shadows that had come back with them. The breath ritual was not just a doorway. It was a tether, and sometimes things followed the breathers back. In a more recent excavation, a collapsed chamber beneath the Avenue of the Dead revealed an ossuary, hundreds of bones placed in a spiral, interspersed with broken obsidian shards. The pattern mimicked the path of inhalation, curling inward like lungs or a nautilus shell. At the center lay a skull, its mouth forced open, blackened resin caked inside. This was likely the remains of a failed initiate, someone who took in too much and could not return. Yet they were honored with burial at the heart of the spiral. It was believed that even in failure, their spirit might light the way for the next. The smoke was not evil, but it was unforgiving. Only the disciplined, the prepared, and the chosen could wield it. Modern shamans in the region still speak of the breath ritual, though much of its method is lost. Some have tried to recreate it using traditional plants and mirrors, but they often stop short of the full ceremony. Too many stories have emerged, of visions turning violent, of participants returning disoriented, paranoid, and drained. The ancient priests understood something we have forgotten. The veil between worlds is not easily crossed without consequence. The pyramid of the sun was not merely a temple to the sky. It was a container for the ritual of breath, a machine designed to compress spirit, release it, and call it back changed. The pyramid inhaled, and it waited. There are connections, subtle but undeniable, between Teotihuacan's rituals and those in other pyramid cultures. The use of mirrors, the alignment with celestial bodies, the idea of breath as sacred passage. Even the presence of tunnels and chambers filled with resonant materials suggests shared understanding. But Teotihuacan took the concept to extremes. Its builders didn't just call the gods, they tried to become them. Through smoke, through vision, through sacrifice of self. And unlike Saqqara, which focused on blood and body, Teotihuacan targeted the soul directly. The breath wasn't just spiritual. It was a weapon, a tool to break the boundaries of reality. What remains of the breath rituals today are fragments, ruined chambers, broken masks, and whispers carved in stone. Yet the pattern is emerging. Just as Saqqara's engineers built tunnels to collect essence, Teotihuacan's priests built corridors to channel spirit. Both worked beneath the pyramid, not above. Both used the body as a bridge, and both understood that true power didn't come from worship alone. It came from participation. The initiate became the altar. The ritual was not something done to them, but something they became. That transformation, that moment when breath met vision, was what they sought. It was the heartbeat of the gods. As we leave the mist-filled halls of Teotihuacan and move toward the next great mystery, the echoes of breath still follow. The smoke that curled in those forgotten chambers may be gone, but its purpose lingers. The next civilization we explore will reveal yet another layer, a ritual not of blood or breath, but of sound. Hidden beneath desert sands, another pyramid hums in silence, waiting to be heard. The journey continues, deeper into the occult practices of the ancient pyramid builders, and closer to the truth they tried to bury. Chapter 3: The Sound Rituals Beneath the Nubian Sands. South of Egypt, across the burning plains and into the ancient land of Kush, lie the forgotten pyramids of Nubia. Smaller than those at Giza but far more numerous, these stone sentinels rise silently over the desert at places like Meroe and Nuri. Beneath their weathered exteriors and crumbling facades lies a history not just of royal tombs, but of sound. The builders of these pyramids were not merely copying Egyptian styles. They were evolving them, transforming burial sites into spiritual instruments. Inside their chambers, strange acoustics twist whispers into wails, and soft footsteps echo like thunder. The ancients understood this resonance, not as coincidence, but as sacred design. For them, sound was not just a tool of ritual, it was the ritual. These chambers weren't meant to be seen. They were meant to be heard, and what they summoned, through vibration and voice, was never fully human. Deep within the pyramid complex at Nuri, a sealed chamber was unearthed in 2019. Inside, explorers reported a sensation unlike anything they had felt before. A low hum, not audible at first, but physical, vibrating through their bones, chest, and teeth. The space had been undisturbed for centuries, yet the sound was still alive. At the center of the room stood a stone dais surrounded by what appeared to be tuning stones. Small, upright pillars carved at specific intervals. When struck, each emitted a unique tone, but together, when activated in sequence, they created a harmonic resonance that filled the chamber. The Nubians had no written manuals for this. Their instructions were embedded in the structure itself. The angles, the stone, the enclosed space, it was all calibrated to respond to sound. The room became a living instrument, and its music, played correctly, was said to call beings that dwelled beneath the sand. These rituals took place in darkness, total absolute black. Participants would fast for days before entering the inner sanctum. At the threshold, a hood was placed over their heads, removing even the faintest glimpse of light. Only the voice remained. Chants began low and slow, matching the heartbeat. Drums made from stretched skin echoed against the walls, pulsing like distant thunder. As the initiate was led inside, the tones began. Metallic pings, rumbling growls, high-ringing notes that never faded. The body reacted instinctively. Breath quickened, limbs trembled, and then something happened. A shift in awareness like falling without motion. The initiate became untethered, held aloft by sound alone. In this state, they were open, ready to receive. What they received depended on the harmony. The Nubians believed each frequency corresponded to a different realm. Some tones brought visions, colors, shapes, and faces unknown. Others brought messages, words not in any known tongue, whispered directly into the mind. But some frequencies brought more than information. They brought presence. Guardians, they called them, entities without form but with immense weight. You couldn't see them, but you could feel them, standing close, breathing softly behind your ear, watching. These rituals were not for contact alone. They were for contracts. The sound was a summons, and in return, something was always expected. A sacrifice, a promise, or sometimes silence. Never to speak of what had been heard. The walls of these chambers bear strange markings, swirls, spirals, and symbols never seen in Egyptian art. They appear to be waveforms, carved to match the vibrations of the tones used in ritual. Some researchers have run sound analysis through modern software, only to find that these ancient waveforms match precise frequencies used today in brain stimulation and deep meditation. But the ancients had no computers. Their knowledge came from experience, passed down through generations of sound priests. These men and women weren't just musicians. They were gatekeepers. They memorized the sequences, guarded the resonating chambers, and oversaw every initiation. Only they could determine if someone was ready. If not, the chamber itself would decide. Not all who entered returned the same. Some initiates were found wandering the desert days later, their eyes wide, speaking in riddles. Others emerged completely mute, never uttering another word. A few collapsed inside the chamber, hearts stilled by terror or overwhelming emotion. These were accepted outcomes. The ritual was never safe. It was never meant to be. Power demanded risk, and those who survived came back changed. Some gained an eerie calm, a heightened sensitivity to sound. Others claimed to hear music where none existed, but all bore the same mark, an invisible tuning. They resonated differently, as if their souls had been recalibrated, tuned to another frequency. Recent excavations at Jebel Barkal revealed another clue. A shaft beneath one pyramid led to a hidden room where walls were covered in soot and scratches. At the center stood a broken drum, its surface scorched. Around it, charred bones, human, fused with fragments of metal. The scene suggested a ritual gone wrong. Perhaps a tone was struck that should have remained silent. Some believe this room was an experiment, a place where sound and fire merged to open a portal too wide. The sacrifice wasn't meant to happen there, but the ritual took its toll anyway. The guardians, once called, could not be sent back. They demanded something more. Even today, local stories warn of places in the desert where the wind hums unnaturally. Travelers speak of hearing whispers in ancient tongues or feeling vibrations in the sand beneath their feet. These places, often near forgotten pyramids, are avoided. Some believe the old rituals still echo through the earth. That sound, once released, never truly dies. It lingers, waiting to be heard again. The Nubians may have vanished, but their tones remain buried in stone, in silence, in time. And the pyramids, though crumbling, still know the songs that once shook their foundations. What sets the Nubian rituals apart is their deliberate invisibility. No grand murals, no monumental carvings, just sound, felt, not seen. The power they summoned required no blood, no smoke, only vibration. This purity made it potent. Unlike the rites of Saqqara or Teotihuacan, the Nubian ceremony didn't transform the initiate by adding elements. It stripped them down to their core frequency. Sound, they believed, was the first language, the voice of creation itself. And by mastering it, one could speak with the original forces of the world. Forces older than gods, older than pyramids. And yet, traces of this ritual appear elsewhere. In temples across Africa and beyond, acoustic oddities emerge. Rooms that amplify whispers, corridors that sing, and stone bowls that ring with unknown purpose. These echoes suggest that the Nubians weren't alone, that the sound ritual, like blood and breath, was part of a greater pattern. A hidden tradition passed through whispers, across oceans and deserts, all tied to pyramids, all tied to transformation, and all pointing toward a central truth. The builders were tuning the world, one ritual at a time. As we leave the buried chambers of Nubia, the air still tingles with unseen vibrations. But the journey is far from over. Ahead lies a jungle where stone pyramids sleep beneath tangled vines. There, another ritual awaits, not of blood, breath, or sound, but of stars and serpents, a code etched in stone and sky, waiting to be cracked. A secret even the jungle has tried to reclaim. Chapter 4: The Serpent Code of Angkor's Hidden Pyramid. Deep in the jungles of Cambodia, beyond the tourist-filled ruins of Angkor, what lies a forgotten structure shrouded in vines and time. Ko Kur, a stepped pyramid rising from the foliage like a broken tooth of an ancient beast, stands in eerie silence. Unlike the temples covered in intricate Buddhist carvings, Ko Kur is stark, geometric, and strangely familiar, more Mesoamerican than Southeast Asian. Yet locals have long whispered of curses that haunt this place, of glowing serpents that dance in the sky above it, and of ancient priests who vanished during star rituals. Modern archaeologists dismissed these tales for decades, but recent LiDAR scans revealed something astonishing. Beneath the stones lies a subterranean chamber, aligned not with the cardinal directions, but with a constellation resembling a coiled serpent. The discovery forced researchers to rethink Ko Kur's purpose. It was not merely a temple. It was a device, a code carved in stone, one that might still be active. The Naga, those mythical serpents worshipped across Southeast Asia, were not just religious symbols. They were central to a system of transformation. In old legends, Naga were guardians of treasure, of water, and of knowledge. But in Ko Kur, they seem to represent something more personal, more alchemical. Beneath the pyramid, faded murals depict a ritual procession. Hooded figures carry star maps, etched onto palm leaves, toward an altar shaped like a spiral. These spirals match the form of ancient Naga glyphs. Yet what startled researchers most was not the imagery. It was what the procession faced. A vertical shaft, nearly 15 meters deep, ending in a polished basin with serpent patterns circling its rim. When scanned, this shaft reflected anomalies, possibly magnetic. And surrounding it, buried under centuries of sediment, were bones, human bones. Each skull showed deliberate cuts across the temple. An offering, but to what? The priests of Ko Kur weren't just performing rites for the gods. They were tuning themselves to celestial rhythms. Records translated from nearby steel speak of days where the stars aligned, and the serpents descended. These weren't mere metaphors. Carvings suggest that initiates would lie naked in the darkness of the pyramid's inner chamber, surrounded by coils of carved stone serpents. At a specific hour of the night, when a certain star passed directly overhead, priests would chant in tones still undeciphered. Some believe the sounds were meant to mimic the hissing of serpents. Others argue they were linguistic remnants of a lost tongue, possibly not human at all. The initiate would enter a trance, surrounded by the echoes of reptilian whispers, and if they survived the ordeal, they emerged changed. What that change entailed, the carvings never say. Only that they spoke differently, moved differently, and never again feared death. One inscription describes a celestial gateway opened by those who bore the mark of the serpent. That mark, scholars suggest, was not symbolic. Under UV scans, certain Kokur relics reveal phosphorescent traces, residues of plant-based inks, now extinct, used to tattoo the body in serpent-like patterns. These tattoos were not decoration. They were maps, ritualistic star maps designed to be read by the skin. Only after receiving the ink could an initiate step into the shaft during the rite. The altered state achieved inside that darkness, amidst vibrations and chants, was said to strip away human frailty and invite the Naga within. These were not simple possession rituals. They were unions, mergers, the human body as host, the serpent as guide. But this ritual came at a cost. Those who failed the initiation were not seen again. Murals show figures wrapped in stone coils, with faces erased. Some theorize that the magnetic anomalies in the shaft were part of the transformation, disrupting the body's field, triggering hallucinations or cellular shifts. One fragment of steel hints at a final step: drinking the venom. Not literal snake venom, but a dark liquid brewed from jungle roots and rare fungi. The recipe is lost, but the basin at the bottom of the shaft once held residue still unknown to chemistry. Tests show traces of serotonin inhibitors, similar to modern psychedelics. The liquid, likely psychoactive, was taken just as the serpent star crossed zenith. The hallucinations weren't random, they were timed, synchronized. The priests were guiding minds into a shared vision, a collective journey, somewhere else. Kokur's pyramid has no burial chamber, no royal sarcophagus, no remains of kings or queens. It was never meant to house the dead. It was a place of rebirth. Every architectural choice, from the steepness of its steps to the narrowness of its corridors, was designed to disorient, to break perception. The initiate would ascend the outer pyramid, descend into its depths, drink the venom, chant under the serpent star, and emerge not as a man or woman, but as something else. The top of the pyramid, now crumbling, was once capped with a stone spire resembling a serpent's fang. Lightning rods, that's what some modern engineers believe. During storms, it would attract strikes. Electricity surging down through the shaft, possibly triggering magnetic effects below. The transformation, then, was not just spiritual. It was electromagnetic, biological, engineered. Surrounding Kokur are dozens of smaller structures, many of them half swallowed by the jungle. But one in particular stands out: a collapsed shrine bearing carvings identical to those found in Teotihuacan across the world. Feathered serpents, cosmic mirrors. The resemblance is uncanny and impossible to explain by trade routes alone. Some theorists argue that a secret class of priests traveled between civilizations, sharing rituals, maps, and technologies disguised as religion. They were not bound by borders or kings. They served the serpent. Whether that serpent was literal or symbolic remains unclear, but the patterns are too precise to ignore. The same obsidian mirrors, the same stellar alignments, the same forbidden tones. Were the Naga real, or were they symbols of something buried deeper? A universal code meant to be unlocked through altered states and ancient machines? Locals still refuse to approach Kokr at night, not because of superstition, but because strange lights sometimes flicker near the summit. Faint, blue glows, like electricity dancing over stone. Cameras malfunction, GPS signals vanish, compasses spin. Whatever the ancients built, it wasn't just for worship. It was for contact, perhaps not with gods, but with intelligences they called serpents. Some believe these were advanced beings. Others say they were parts of the human psyche, externalized through ritual. But the deeper we dig, the more it seems the ancients were activating something inside themselves. Something dormant, something coiled. The serpent, in many cultures, represents duality, life and death, poison and cure, knowledge and chaos. In Kokr, that duality was made sacred. The ritual didn't just grant visions, it separated the weak from the worthy. The chosen ones emerged with insight and power. Some claim they became healers, others became rulers, and a few vanished entirely. One steel fragment says they walked into the jungle and never looked back, their eyes glowing like stars. Perhaps they found what the ritual promised, ascension, or perhaps they became the very things they once worshipped. Modern researchers continue to debate the true purpose of Kokr. Some dismiss the serpent code as mythology. Others believe it holds the key to understanding ancient consciousness. But if the pyramid is a machine and the ritual a program, then the serpent may be neither god nor beast. It may be a message, one left behind for those brave enough to hear it. The echoes of the chant still linger, the stars still align, and deep below the jungle floor, the shaft waits, cold, silent, ready. All of it points to a chilling truth. The ancients were not just building monuments. They were building gateways. Kokr was a puzzle built of stone, blood, and starlight. The priests knew that to unlock the self, one must first shed the human. The Naga was not a creature. It was a state, a form of being beyond fear, beyond language, beyond mortality. And in the dark, echoing halls of that jungle pyramid, a few may have crossed that threshold, never to return. Chapter 5: The Forbidden Rite That United the Pyramids. They stood continents apart. Their stones were shaped by different hands, speaking different tongues, under suns that rose on opposite sides of the earth. And yet, the pyramids, those towering testaments to power, shared something strange. At first, it was only architecture, sloped steps, hollow corridors, chambered hearts. But slowly, symbols emerged. Fragments of rituals, common tools, shared elements, blood, smoke, sound, stars, sacrifice. These weren't coincidences. They were traces of something older, something the builders themselves may not have fully understood. This chapter is not about a single site or single people. It's about a code, one buried across time and culture, a forbidden rite whispered through stone. And if true, it means the pyramid was never just a tomb or temple. It was a vessel for something ancient, and possibly something not entirely human. In the desert of Saqqara, red stains led to whispers of life force rituals. In Teotihuacan, smoke twisted through mirrored caverns to part the veil. In Nubia, tones danced in darkness, unlocking otherworldly guardians. In Cambodia, serpents slithered through constellations, awakening hidden language. 5 continents, 5 rites. But when each was mapped, literally plotted, onto a global grid, the results were staggering. The pyramids aligned not just with celestial markers, but with each other. Ley lines, geomagnetic nodes. Nodes where energy was said to converge. These structures formed a network, a lattice of power. But for what? Were they built in unison, directed by unseen architects? Or did each civilization rediscover the same ancient instructions, passed down from a forgotten source? Ancient texts hint at a priesthood that wandered after a great deluge, not bound to one place, but spread across lands like seeds in the wind. Their knowledge wasn't religious, it was technical, geometric, celestial. The rituals were not acts of faith but engineering. Blood was the conductor, smoke the carrier, sound the key, stars the map, sacrifice the fuel. Together they triggered something. But what? The rites weren't meant to honor gods. They were meant to reach them, or awaken them, or perhaps become them. At Giza, early blueprints show underground tunnels mirroring star charts. At Teotihuacan, entire neighborhoods were laid out to echo planetary orbits. At Kokur, temple alignment was based not on the sun, but a star cluster long lost to modern skies. This was not architecture, it was invocation. Recent excavations in the Sudanese pyramids found fragments of a tablet. Not hieroglyphs, not pictograms, a script unknown. Beneath it, 5 circles interlocked. 1 red, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 blue, 1 white. And then, below it, a simple pattern, a pyramid divided by a spiral. Independent researchers matched this to pre-Ice Age carvings in Siberia. Same symbol, same proportions. Cultures that never met. Civilizations that were supposed to have no contact. So how could they share this? Unless someone gave it to them, or something. The antediluvian priesthood, as some call it, may have been more than myth. Survivors of a previous epoch, masters of rituals too advanced to be seen as anything but magic. The spiral pyramid symbol reappears in coded carvings inside the Red Pyramid, at the very heart of Chichen Itza, and deep in the catacombs beneath Angkor. Each shows the same configuration, 5 stages or gates, each gate marked by a rite, blood, smoke, sound, stars, sacrifice. These were not random. They were steps, a process, a key. And the pyramid itself was the lock. The rite, when performed properly, was said to open the way, not to an afterlife, but to a state of becoming, emerging. Those who completed all 5 were no longer human, at least not entirely. That was the unspoken truth. These weren't death rituals. They were transformation engines, spiritual or biological. In the Giza Plateau, radar imaging found an unexcavated chamber beneath the Sphinx.
No doors, no tunnel.
A void sealed from all sides, but vibrations respond to certain chants. Low frequencies, echoes from the Nubian rituals. When played, the stone resonates, like something inside is listening. At Teotihuacan, hidden sensors in the tunnels detected heat pulses at regular intervals, as if the pyramid breathes. At Kokr, electromagnetic surges rise on lunar nights, forming patterns in the jungle canopy. The pyramids are not dormant. They pulse, they respond, as if waiting for the rite to be completed once more. A forbidden manuscript surfaced in the 19th century, claimed to be from a Jesuit archive. It described a pyramid ritual performed in 5 nations on the same lunar eclipse. The participants, all unknown today, vanished. No bodies, no records. Only scattered journal pages remained, detailing each step. Each city performed one part of the rite. Blood in Egypt, smoke in Mexico, sound in Sudan, stars in Cambodia. The 5th sacrifice was never documented, but the manuscript ends with a final sentence translated roughly as, "The gate was opened." Whether hoax or truth, its echoes remain, and so do the pyramids. Modern science rejects the idea of shared pyramid ritual. Too speculative, too unprovable. But a growing number of researchers, archaeologists, and even physicists believe otherwise. That the shapes, the angles, the materials all serve a purpose. That ritual is a form of technology. That belief, when channeled correctly, alters reality. The ancients weren't ignorant. They were disciplined. They built machines to manipulate existence. But the cost was blood. Smoke, sound, stars, and ultimately sacrifice. A high price for a glimpse behind the veil. If the forbidden rite was real, then its purpose was not just communion but convergence. To gather energy across the globe. Through pain, through ecstasy, through sound and silence. The pyramid was the switch, the ritual, the current, and the human soul, the fuse. Those who entered never came out the same. Some never returned at all. But those who completed it, they were said to walk between worlds, to speak in ancient tongues, to command the elements. They became myths, gods, or monsters, depending on who tells the story. Now, as AI deciphers ancient languages and satellites reveal buried structures, we stand on the edge again. The pattern is visible. The code incomplete, but close, perhaps too close. The rituals may return, performed not by priests, but by seekers, in secret across ruins. In the name of curiosity or hunger, the past has never been so near, and the pyramids, silent for millennia, may soon awaken again, this time not with stone tools or torches, but with frequencies, particles, and precision. And when the rite begins again, who or what will come through? So the question remains, were the pyramid rituals separate traditions or shadows of a singular truth? Did each civilization stumble upon the same dark path, or were they shown? If the forbidden rite was real, and the signs suggest it was, then it still waits, encoded in the stone, whispers in the wind, 5 steps, 1 transformation, all hidden in plain sight, and the final key, the last offering, may not be in the past, but ahead, still to be made, still to be sacrificed,